Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Battle Report brought to you by the Legion Wargaming. And today we return to a planet on which the forces of the Tau Empire are in conflict with the forces of the Imperium of mankind, and following a daring orbital strike by the Vanguard chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, the Astra Militarum ground forces have managed to pin down some of the Tau Hunter Cadres and bring them to battle at last. And today we bear witness to one such engagement, one of many raging across the surface of this world. The battle today is 1,850 points, Purge the Alien with Vanguard Strike deployment. Let's take a look at the armies. This 1,850 point Imperial Guard army is a single combined arms detachment and is led by a company command squad with a las cannon team, a Vox and a Master of Ordnance, and 3 troops choices. An infantry platoon. The platoon command squad has 3 melter guns and a Vox, and a combined squad of 3 Imperial Guard infantry squads with a Vox. And the platoon also has 2 heavy weapon squads with las cannon. The second choice is a very similar platoon, led by an identical platoon command squad, 3 melter guns and a Vox, and another 3 squads of Imperial Guard infantry, combined to make a squad of 30, and they also have a Vox. And this platoon has 2 special weapon squads, both with 3 plasma guns. The third troops choice is a single squad of veterans. They have the Grenadiers and Demolitions Doctrine, and they also have a missile launcher and 3 plasma guns, and they come with a Chimera with a hull mounted heavy flamer. The 2 big platoons will be joined by independent HQ choices of 2 priests, making them fearless and quite deadly in assault. This combined arms detachment also has 3 fast attack choices. The Imperial Guard favourite on this channel, the Vulture gunship with twin-link Punisher cannons, and 2 squads of 5 Rough Riders, modelled to be riding bikes. And finally 3 heavy support choices, 2 Leman Russ battle tanks and a Leman Russ executioner with plasma cannon sponsons. This guard list packs a lot of firepower, but they are going up against an army renowned for its firepower. Will they be able to triumph? We'll see, and let's see what the Tau have brought along. This 1,850 point Tau list is the dreaded Hunter contingent and comprises a Hunter Cadre and an armoured interdiction Cadre. The core choice, the Hunter Cadre, is led by a commander. He has the full range of technological gadgets, a multi-spectrum sensor suite, a command and control node, the PureTide engram neurochip, and a NeuroWeb system jammer, so he will be buffing the other members of the Cadre. He has brought with him 2 squads of 6 Pathfinders for some marker lights, and the main infantry of this army, 3 strike teams, each of 8 fire warriors with pulse rifles. This army is going to combat the Guard by playing their own game, long-range firepower. This Cadre has 3 teams of 2 broadsides, high-yield missile pods, 1 team with railguns and twin-link plasma rifles, and another team with high-yield missile pods. And the Cadre also has an XV-108 Riptide with an ion accelerator, twin-linked fusion blasters, and 2 crisis teams, and all of these crisis suits have 2 plasma rifles each and a fusion blaster each. So a formidable Hunter Cadre, and the Tau have brought their armour along. The armoured interdiction Cadre, 3 hammerheads, and they all have sub-munitions to go with their deadly anti-tank railguns. And for some anti-air, a Skyray ready to shoot down the Vulture with some Seeker missiles. This army will be combining firepower. They will be getting all sorts of rerolls and ignores cover. Can their firepower overcome the firepower of the Imperial Guard? We'll see. Moving in to deployment. And the armies have deployed, with the Tau deploying a fearsome amount of firepower on their left flank. We have got 2 hammerhead gunships hovering over these rocky outcrops, and they are supported by a team of XV-88 broadsides with their long range heavy rail rifles, and both crisis teams, one led by the commander himself. Their jetpacks make them ideal for popping out from behind these rocks, firing and then ducking back into cover. The ruined Administratum building has been taken over by both teams of broadsides with their high yield missile pods, and from their vantage point they will be able to send hail after hail of missiles across this battlefield. The main body of infantry of the Hunter Cadre have taken up position in the centre. 2 of the strike teams are looking to move forward onto this rocky outcrop and dominate the centre of the battlefield with their volley fire, while the final team is looking to move up and occupy these barricades, which again offer a fantastic defensive position for them. They are supported by the final hammerhead from the Interdiction Cadre and the Skyray, which is already searching for targets. It is waiting for the Vulture gunship to turn up so it can blow it out of the air. The Riptide has been deployed, ready to move to support either wing of the Tau army. Over on the Tau far right, the stealthy Pathfinder teams have crept forward. They have a brilliant vantage point from the rocky outcrop and the landing pad, and they are going to be firing their marker lights all across the table for the rest of the Hunter contingent. This is a truly terrifying firing line. Will the Guard be able to overcome it? Well, it looks like the Guard commander has set up an ambush of his own. He has sent all of his massive infantry running through these rocks. They want to close with the Tau and overwhelm them with massed volleys of laser fire. We have 1 large infantry squad led by their priest. They're supported by a las cannon team on this rocky outcrop, and then running through the next series of gullies we have the other massive infantry squad, and they are once again supported by a las cannon team on this landing pad. The Colonel has ordered his tanks to take up firing positions, so they are hull down, but they can fire through the gullies, and they have plenty of excellent targets. The platoon support squads, the special weapon squads and the command squads are ready to move up after the mass of infantry. 2 squads with plasma guns and 1 platoon command squad, and the other platoon command squad has taken up a position in these barricades with the Colonel himself, and he has commanded his Master of Ordnance to call down as much high explosive as he can onto the Tau. But the commander has set his ambush on his far left. Both squads of Rough Riders and the veterans in their Chimera are looking to move up. They're delighted to see that in front of them they have vulnerable targets in the form of the Tau Pathfinders, but are more worried by the Riptide standing behind that ridge. So the Guard have deployed in a very, very compact way. It looks like an ambush, but can anyone really hunt the Hunters? Let's see. The Tau deployed first, so unless the Guard can seize the initiative, we will be going into Tau turn 1. And the Imperial Guard have seized the initiative and sprung their trap. They have lain in wait for the Tau, and now they are surging forwards. The two huge combined squads led by their priests are moving through the rocks and gullies as quickly as they can to get at the aliens, and their support squads are moving up behind them. Squad with plasma guns, their platoon command squad, and another squad with plasma guns. Meanwhile, the Imperial Guard heavy armour has held position. They have excellent firing positions where they are, and they are drawing lines of sight to many, many dangerous Tau units. As this guard platoon swarms over the landing pad, the colonel is already searching out targets for his las cannon team and his master of ordnance. And on the Imperial Guard left flank, the ambush is well and truly underway. The Chimera and the Rough Riders have gunned their engines, and they are trying to take out the Pathfinders as quickly as possible. The Imperial Guard know how deadly Markalites can be, and they want the scouting Tau dead. Still, this is an excellent result for the Guard. Let's see how much damage they can do to the Tau in their surprise first shooting phase. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase turn 1, and it has been a good one for the Guard. The first massive combined infantry squad were ordered to wash the Pathfinders off of that rocky outcrop, and under the effect of front rank fire, second rank fire, they wiped the Tau out and earned the Guard first blood. The las cannon teams both took aim at the central hammerhead. They managed to do one hull point and crucially to stun the Tau tank. This massive platoon were ordered to wipe out the strike team that was sheltering behind this rock, and they gunned down 6 out of 7 because they could not see the final member of the team, but he has passed morale. And perhaps the biggest news in this phase, both Leman Russ battle tanks managed to land their battle cannon shells on the Tau commander and his crisis bodyguards with a series of terrible cover saves. They were all blown to pieces, earning the Guard slay the warlord as well. This truly has been a devastating turn, but even more damage was done. The Master of Ordnance managed to land his barrage on top of this hammerhead on this rocky outcrop, doing a hull point and crucially destroying its railgun. And finally, the Leman Russ Executioner managed to not get hot with its weapons and do a wound to the mighty XV-104 Riptide right at the back of the Tau line. This really has been an incredibly effective opening volley from the Guard. Their ambush has gone better than they could have hoped. They certainly seem to have the upper hand, and we have the potential for an assault, or maybe a couple of assaults. Let's see if the Rough Riders can make it up this ridge and into the last Tau Pathfinder team in Astra Militarum Assault Phase Turn 1. End of Astra Militarum Assault Phase Turn 1, and as both squads of Rough Riders tried to get their bikes up the ridge, the Pathfinders shot down one with their pulse carbines, but in the end the bikers had to give up. They could not get at the Tau behind their barricades on top of the landing pad. Still, this has been an incredibly effective turn from the Guard. They seized the initiative and they have made the Tau pay. But the Tau are about to unleash their own firepower. Let's see, going into Tau, turn 1. End of Tau movement phase, turn 1, and despite their losses, they remain undaunted. They know that they have a horrendous amount of firepower to throw into the Guard, and they are going to coordinate it very, very effectively. The Tau left flank, the hammerheads and the broadsides have held position. They are going to give fire onto the massive platoon. That wiped out the Fire Warriors. The last XV8 crisis team is jetpacking forward. They need to bring their guns to bear as soon as possible, while two XV88 broadside teams, they have held position. They are preparing to unleash a rain of death onto this Guard platoon. And the strike teams are moving forwards. They are undaunted. They know that with the support of the rest of their hunter contingent, they are going to make the humans pay. And interestingly, the last remaining member of this strike squad, he is still a unit, so for purposes of the hunter contingent rules, he will come in quite handy. Be an extra unit to target things, to give them that +1 ballistic skill when they target units with 3 or more. This strike team, undaunted, has moved up to their firing position at the barricades. They are going to pour their pulse shots into the wave of grey that is charging at them. And the other half of the armoured interdiction cadre has held position. The hammerhead is stunned, and the Sky Ray, he has plenty of range, but not many good targets at the moment. And in retribution for the death of one Pathfinder team, the XV88 Riptide has been ordered to deal with the Imperial Guard flank attack. And meanwhile, the last squad of Pathfinders is still in cover. They are selecting the best target for their marker lights. The Riptide is standing proud on that ridge because his Nova Reactor has given him a 3+ invulnerable save. So, Imperial Guard fire was devastating. Let's see if the Tau can match them. Going into Tau, shooting phase, turn 1. End of Tau, shooting phase, turn 1. And the Tau have demonstrated that they can change the course of a game with a single volley. 26 of the squad of 30 lie dead because they were targeted by all 3 remaining strike teams, including the one Fire Warrior who's on his own, the XV8 crisis team and one of the hammerheads, and this squad suddenly is looking to be much, much less of a threat. The Pathfinders had lit them up with 3 marker lights, and with a coordinated firepower rule, they were just blown to bits. But they still have their priests, so they are fearless. They will not be falling back. Meanwhile, the XV88 broadsides in the building combine their fire with the other broadsides all the way over in the ruined chapel, and they wiped out the las cannon team that was on this central rocky rise. The Riptide opened fire with its iron accelerator, managed to take out a Rough Rider from each squad, and the appearance of the Riptide proved too much for this squad of Rough Riders, and they have busted morale and started to fall back. And despite being stunned, the central hammerhead managed to take out one Guardsman from this huge squad with its smart missile system. The Guard are being wiped off the table as quickly as they can advance towards the Tau, and even though their first turn of firing was very, very devastating from the Tau's perspective, the Tau's return fire really has shown that the Guard have got a real battle ahead of them. We've got some jetpack moves, and then we will be going into Astra Militarum, turn 2. End of Astra Militarum movement phase, turn 2, and this Imperial Guard commander is coordinating his forces magnificently. The Vulture gunship has come weaving its way through the canyons and is about to perform a strafing run into the ruined Administratum building to take out some of the Tau's heavy battle suits that are so dangerous to the massed ranks of Guard. Meanwhile, in the centre, the Colonel is continuing to order his men forward as quickly as possible. The priest, he has the survivors of this platoon whipped up. He knows that he can at least take out one fire warrior stood on a rocky outcrop. The plasma teams and the platoon command squads are moving through the gullies as quickly as they can in support, but they are moving quite slowly. It is tricky terrain, and the Lehman Russ line has once again held position. They still have plenty of good targets. There's no need for them to give themselves away just yet. The remaining large combined squad, they are being ordered to sweep this strike team away from the barricades. Once they've done that, they will be able to push into the centre of the Tau line. And on the far left, the Rough Riders are going to try once again to negotiate this rock face to get at the Pathfinders, while the veterans have deployed from their Chimera. They know that the Riptide has a very, very effective shield generator, but they're going to unload their plasma guns into it regardless. Meanwhile, at the back line, the Colonel is happy with the way this battle is progressing so far. He has taken a lot of casualties amongst his Guardsmen, but that is the lot of Imperial Guardsmen. So he's just going to keep telling his Master of Ordnance to drop barrages on the aliens. Let's see if the Guard's second shooting phase can be as effective as their first. Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 2. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 2, and it's been a good one. Not quite as good as the first, but quite good nevertheless. The Vulture came strafing in and targeted the team of broadsides that are on the first floor of this building. The mighty battlesuits staggered under the weight of bullets hammering into them. One went down and his teammate was left with one wound. It's just the vast number of shots that the Vulture kicks out with its Punishers. It really is very, very dangerous against many, many targets. The remnants of this squad managed to take down the lone fire warrior, standing proud on this rocky outcrop, and the plasma team from their platoon, they lost a plasma gunner attempting some long range shots against the crisis suits, but they did manage to wound one of the XV8 suits. The armour line was quite disappointing this turn. Both of these Russes missed the crisis suits with their battle cannon. So this side of the Tau line remains quite strong. In the centre, the Lehman Russ Executioner managed to do some damage to itself as one of its plasma sponsons overheated, but to add insult to injury, it also failed to do any damage to the XV-104 Riptide, standing proud on this rocky outcrop. Meanwhile, under the orders of front rank fire, second rank fire, this massed squad of Guard swept the barricades clear of fire warriors. They went to ground, but it did them no good. The blizzard of laser fire cut them all down. The las cannon teams on this landing pad managed to do a wound to the Riptide with some accurate long range fire, and the veterans who disembarked from their Chimera, they lost a plasma gunner, but they managed to do another wound to the Riptide, so it only has 2 left. The Rough Riders are preparing to charge up the ridge, see if they can make it this turn. And like the Lehman Russ battle tanks, unfortunately for the Guard, the Master of Ordnance's barrage was very, very inaccurate and hit nothing. So the Guard certainly are racking up the kill points. This is Purge the Alien. They need as many points as possible for victory, but the Tau still have a lot of strength. So a very interesting battle so far. Let's see if the Rough Riders can ride down the last Pathfinder team in Astra Militarum Assault Phase, turn 2. End of Astra Militarum Assault Phase, turn 2, and a terrible phase for the Guard. The Rough Riders tried to negotiate their way up the rock face, but the Pathfinders unleashed a blistering volley from their pulse carbines and shot down, unbelievably, all 4 remaining Rough Riders. So, with the Pathfinders, they really are leading the way. The rest of the Tau can follow their example. The Guardsmen really do need to be worried. Let's see what the Tau do going into Tau turn 2. End of Tau movement phase turn 2, and the majority of the Tau army has held position, with the Guard rushing at them. They have a huge number of targets to choose from, and they are going to concentrate on unleashing total devastation. The only 2 Tau units that have moved forward are this strike team, which has taken up position on the central rocky outcropping, and this crisis team. They have jetpacked over onto the roof of this bunker. They can give fire this turn on many targets, but they are trying to close the distance to the Leman Russ tanks to employ their fusion blasters. The Interdiction Cadre still has 2 hammerheads operational, and they are planning to plant their submunition rounds right on top of this massive squad of Guard. Once they've been illuminated with some marker lights, of course. And the Riptide has decided that the plasma guns from the veterans are a threat to it, and it is going to take them down with its ion accelerator. Its shield is once again Nova charged, so the rest of the Tau, they have targets to choose from. The broadsides have not yet decided where they're going to put their firepower, but the damaged hammerhead is going to use its smart missiles to take down the remnants of this Guard squad, and the Skyray has been given orders to perform its task and take down the Vulture, which the Tau are very, very worried about after its last strafing run. Let's see. We predict carnage in Tau shooting phase turn 2. End of Tau shooting phase turn 2, and they have clicked delete. This squad of Guardsmen, there were 30 of them including the priest. Well, they were targeted by both hammerhead submunitions and the XV-88s with their missile pods, and they were lit up by 3 marker lights from the Pathfinders. Following the death of 28 of the Guardsmen, including all of their sergeants and the priest, unsurprisingly, the remaining 2 Guardsmen decided they'd better fall back 12 inches, and they are heading for the hills. That was a hideous volley of firepower, but the Tau had a lot more to offer as well. The Riptide landed its iron accelerator right on top of the veterans, and now they only have the missile launcher team and 1 Guardsman left. This flank attack has been blown to pieces by the Tau. The remnants of the squad at the foot of this rocky outcropping and their priest have been shot down by the strike team with supporting fire from the damaged hammerhead. But there are a couple of good pieces of news for the Guard. The Skyray failed to do any damage to the Vulture, and it has not jinked, so it will be strafing more next turn. And in a terrible display of marksmanship, this crisis team did no damage to the plasma gun squad on this rocky rise. But after this turn, the Guard really are looking quite thin on the ground. They still have their tanks, but the infantry have paid a terrible price for their commander ordering them into a frontal attack. The hammerheads from the Interdiction Cadre, combined with the broadsides, were ferocious this turn. We've got a couple of jetpack moves to do, and then we will be giving a brief summary of the victory points so far at the end of turn 2. The end of Tau turn 2, neither the XV-104 Riptide or the crisis team rolled high enough on their jetpack moves to make it worth moving, so they have held position. And at the end of 2 player turns, the victory points so far are 4 points to the Tau. They have wiped out one of the huge guard squads, both squads of Rough Riders and a las cannon team. And they've got another victory point on the way from these 2 falling back off the table. Meanwhile, the Guard have managed to wipe out 2 strike teams, 1 squad of Pathfinders, the Commander and an XV8 team, giving them 5 kill points. They've also got First Blood and Slay the Warlords, so they are currently leading 7-4. But the battlefield itself certainly paints a different picture. There's a lot more white left on the table than there is grey. And can the Guard stand up to any more punishing volleys of fire from the Hunter contingent? Let's see, going into Astra Militarum, turn 3. End of Astra Militarum movement phase turn 3, and the Guard are forming a new firing line along this ridge with their special weapons teams and with their platoon command squads. This plasma gun team is going to keep firing at these crisis suits, and the platoon command has managed to get 2 of its melter gunners into range as well. They need to take down these XV8s before they can bring their fusion blasters to bear against the Lehman Russ tanks. The Lehman Russes have once again held position. They still have plenty of targets, and they are hoping for a more accurate volley of fire this turn. The Vulture has weaved its way across the Tau lines, and he has given himself the option of targeting either the Pathfinders or the XV-104 Riptide. But the Guard are hoping that the fire of the remaining veterans, the las cannons, this plasma team that's moved up onto this landing pad, and the platoon command squad with their melter guns can take down the Riptide, and then surely the Vulture will tear the Pathfinders to pieces with its Punishers. The Commander, for the first time, is worried. He has lost so many Guardsmen, and his forces are looking a little bit weak now. But he is continuing to direct the fire of the Master of Ordnance. If they can drop another barrage somewhere, that could help the Guard out a lot. Let's see how the Guard get on in their 3rd shooting phase. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase turn 3, and it's been a disappointing one for the Guardsmen. Although the plasma team and the platoon command squad with their melter guns each managed to put 2 wounds on the crisis team, they made all 4 cover saves, so it fell to the Lehman Russ battle tank to take 1 suit out with a round from his battle cannon. The Master of Ordnance managed to catch 2 of the Central Strike team in his barrage, but then roll a double 1, so it once again fell to a Lehman Russ tank to do the damage, and he landed his battle cannon shell in the midst of the fire warriors, taking out 4 of them, but the survivors have held morale. The remaining Lehman Russ, the Executioner, in a spectacular malfunction of its plasma weaponry, managed to take itself out, and that meant that the Riptide managed to weather the firepower of the plasma gun team and the las cannons and the veterans, and it finally fell, as it so often does with this Astra Militarum army, to their trusty Vulture to hose it with fire and finally knock the big machine down. Unfortunately, that left only the veterans Chimera to target the Pathfinders, and it did no damage at all. So quite a disappointing phase for the Guardsmen, although taking out the Riptide is always good news. With no assaults, we go straight into Tau. Turn 3. End of Tau movement phase turn 3, and once again the only Tau units that have moved are the Strike team in the centre, and the XV8 crisis suit, the only XV8 remaining. But good news for the Guard, he has failed to bring his fusion blaster into melter range of any Leman Russes, so he will be targeting Guardsmen with his plasma rifles. The rest of the Tau line is still chucking out a huge amount of firepower. We still have Hammerheads and the Skyray, all three XV88 teams still alive, and the Pathfinders all the way over on their own on the Tau far right flank. Skyray is going to try and knock down the Vulture again, and the rest of the Tau line is going to focus on taking out as many Guardsmen as possible. Let's see how they get on. Tau shooting phase turn 3. End of Tau shooting phase turn 3, and the Tau really are doing a ruthlessly efficient job of wiping out these small Guard squads that are left. The plasma gun squad on top of this rocky outcrop was targeted by all three broadside teams, and they were blown to pieces. And at the foot of the rise, the platoon command squad was targeted by the remnants of this strike team, and the damaged Hammerhead was just firing its smart missiles, and the XV8, and they too were all gunned down. The Tau really are racking up kill points now by combining their fire very effectively. The Skyray managed to do a penetrating hit on the Vulture, knocking off a hull point and shaking it so it will only be firing snapshots next turn. And the two fully functional Hammerheads, they made use of their predictive targeting grid, and even though the plasma gun team on top of this landing pad went to ground, they were still blown to bits by two submunitions and some smart missile fire. So the Guard are being whittled away to nothing. They still have their two Leman Russ tanks undamaged, but infantry now, las cannons, the company commander and a platoon commander, and a couple of veterans. But the Tau look like they have seized control of this engagement. With no assaults, we will be going into Astra Militarum, turn 4. End of Astra Militarum, movement phase turn 4, and the shaken Vulture has decided to leave combat airspace. It's going to fly off and line up for another strafing run across the battlefield. The rest of the Guard line behind the ridge has held position. The two Leman Russes are still firing their battle cannons into the main body of the Tau, and the company commander still directing the master of ordnance. The las cannon teams are going to try to take out the nearest Hammerhead. They have seen the devastation its submunitions can do, and this platoon command squad in the gully has become bogged down. They rolled a double 1 for their move through cover, and they have melter guns, so they're not going to be very useful this turn. Over on the Imperial Guard far left flank, the veterans have realised that their Chimera has a heavy flamer, which could finally be the solution to burn out the Pathfinders, and the remaining veterans are moving in support as well. But a very quick phase from the Guard. They really have very few units left now. Let's see, let's hope they can make every shot count in their 4th shooting phase. End of Astra Militarum, shooting phase turn 4, and the Chimera managed to burn out 4 of the Pathfinders with its heavy flamer, but its multi-laser and the veterans did not manage to take out either of the remaining 2, and they have held morale. The las cannon teams were ordered to bring it down by the company commander, and they did so. They smashed through the armour of this Hammerhead with 2 las cannon shots and left it a burning wreck. Unfortunately for the Guard, this Leman Russ was very inaccurate with its battle cannon. It was targeting the Skyray, but it scattered off the table. Slightly better news for the far right hand Leman Russ. He managed to land his battle cannon on the final crisis suit and take it out earning another valuable kill point for the guard. And once again, the Master of Ordnance managed to land his ordnance barrage to cover 2 of the strike team in the centre, and yet again rolled double 1. So maybe the long range artillery from the rear of the Astra Militarum lines are firing dud shells. Still looks like the Tau have the upper hand going into Tau turn 4. End of Tau movement phase, turn 4, and as we know, the Guard are seriously running out of units, but the Tau have lost a huge amount of their force as well. So another very quick movement phase from the Tau. This strike team, they have no good targets for their pulse rifles left over this side of the field. They can't hurt Lehman Russ tanks, so they are moving towards the centre. And the same goes for the Hammerhead that lost its railgun early on. It's only got its smart missile system, so it is hovering as fast as it can towards the centre. The 2 broadside teams, they are just in range of the Imperial Guard veterans with their high yield missile pods. They're going to try and take them out, and the Pathfinders have been ordered to target the las cannon teams, so that the remainder of the armoured interdiction cadre, the Sky Ray, and from right over this side of the field, the undamaged Hammerhead can take them out. And the last team of broadsides, they are in range of the nearest Lehman Russ tank, but its frontal armour is formidable, so they're not too hopeful at damaging the human war machine. Still, we could see a few more kill points racked up in Tau shooting phase, turn 4. End of Tau shooting phase, turn 4, and in the centre, the damaged Hammerhead moved flat out, try and get itself near some better targets, and the remaining members of the strike team ran. They're using the damaged Hammerhead for cover. The Tau line opened up, and unsurprisingly, the missile pod wielding broadsides wiped out the remaining veterans. The Pathfinders managed to miss with both of their marker lights when they targeted the las cannon teams, but the fire of the Sky Ray and from huge range the undamaged Hammerhead, making use of their special targeting rules provided by their formation, still managed to take down all 3 las cannon teams with their firepower. And the broadsides with their heavy rail rifles, they both targeted this Lehman Russ, but both of their shots pinged off its frontal armour. Still, the Tau have removed another couple of dangerous units that the Guard had, and now the Guard really only have 2 command squads, a Chimera and 2 Russes left, but good news, at least next turn the Vulture will come flying back on. So at the end of 4 player turns, let's see what the scores are looking like so far. At the end of 4 game turns, the Tau have so far got 10 kill points. They have wiped out 10 Imperial Guard units. The Imperial Guard have managed to wipe out 7 Tau units, but they also got First Blood and slay the Warlords, so they have a total of 9. Very close, 10 points versus 9 going into Astra Militarum, turn 5. End of Astra Militarum, turn 5 movement phase, and the Vulture gunship has flown back on to the battlefield, and he is looking to finish off what he started by targeting the remaining broadside from the team that was on the first floor. This is a kill points game, and both sides now are looking to wipe out specific enemy units. The platoon command squad with melters has moved up onto the top of the landing pad, but they have failed to bring their melter guns into range of this damaged hammerhead, and as a consequence both Leman Russ tanks have driven up onto these rocky outcrops, and they are going to try and take out the ailing Tau vehicle with their battle cannon. The company commander has realised that he needs to stay alive. He's worth a victory point, so he is hanging out at the back still, and he is still commanding the Master of Ordnance. There's plenty of places where an ordnance barrage could still be very, very handy. And since the Pathfinders neglected to run, even though they could have done, they are going to once again be washed by the heavy flamer on the front of the Chimera, hopefully wiping them out too. Let's see. Astra Militarum, turn 5, shooting phase. End of Astra Militarum, shooting phase, turn 5, and good news, the Chimera did manage to take out both remaining Pathfinders with a blast of its heavy flamer, and the Vulture, ever reliable, shredded the last broadside stood on the first floor. Another 2 badly needed kill points for the Guard there, but although both Leman Russes managed to land their battle cannons squarely on the damaged hammerhead, it jinked and managed to dodge both of them. And as has been the way for the past few turns, the Master of Ordnance barrage did nothing this time because it missed by miles. This game really is very, very close. Let's see what the Tau do in their 5th turn. End of Tau, turn 5 movement phase, and the only Tau unit that has moved is the 4-man strike team that have moved up behind the barricades. They want some cover, and they're going to start firing their pulse rifles at this platoon command squad on this landing pad. Everything else has held position. The hammerhead is planning to support the fire of the fire warriors, even though he's only firing snapshots. And the Skyray, the broadsides, the other broadsides, and the hammerhead, they are presented with some choices. Do they want to shoot down the Vulture, or do they think they would be better employed targeting some of the Guard units? We'll see going into Tau shooting phase, turn 5. End of Tau shooting phase, turn 5, and fire from the remaining strike team, the snap shooting hammerhead with its smart missiles, and the remaining broadside team with their high yield missile pods managed to take out all of the platoon command squad. And sadly for the Astra Militarum, the Skyray and the broadsides and the hammerhead in the end all targeted the Vulture, and they managed to knock it out of the air. It was destroyed as well. Not many Tau units, so not many targets, but still what they do target goes down. We have just rolled for it, and the game has ended. This is going to be a close one. We are not actually sure which side has achieved victory. Both have done a catastrophic amount of damage to each other. Let's see. And at the end of this bloodbath of a battle, the Tau have managed to take out 13 units from the Astra Militarum force, but they did not manage to achieve any extra victory points this game, so their final score is 13. The Astra Militarum, on the other hand, have only managed to take out 10 Tau units, but they also got First Blood, they also got Slay the Warlord, and after a bit of very, very close measuring, the Veterans Chimera is also giving them Line Breaker. So, at the end of this game, both sides have 13 victory points. It is a draw. Quite a fair result, we think, given the immense damage both sides have done to each other. Both of these armies packed a huge amount of long-range firepower and they just opened up on each other. Still, we can't help but feel, had the Guard not stolen the initiative and the Tau had been allowed to fire first, this game could have gone very differently. In that scenario, we think the Tau would probably have dominated. But fortunately for the Guard, they managed to get a few quick kills, specifically First Blood and slay the Warlord in their first turn, as well as eliminate some high value targets. But this has been a great game. We are very, very surprised. We thought the Tau would dominate. But 13-13, a satisfying result. And we can't wait to see these two have another crack at each other. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and we will keep producing as many Warhammer 40,000 battle reports as we can. See ya!